My husband Ethan brought home an AI wife. After he brought her back, she replaced me fast. He started griping that I wasn't gentle enough, that I was too cold in bed, that he hated dealing with my period every month. Something snapped and I shoved the AI Mia to the floor. But Ethan got between us and slapped me across the face. If you had half her sense, I wouldn't have this headache. Claire, go to the Perfect Wife Academy and learn how to be a real partner. He drove me there himself. 3 years later, he came to pick me up in that Maybach. I stood at the entrance in a white dress, hair down past my shoulders, the same way I looked the day he dropped me off. He called my name. I didn't move. The head mistress smiled and reminded him, Mr. Hayes, you have to say activate. That's the only way. Perfect wife. Number 001 turns on activate. No. Yari Yayan. If he said it. Shaky. Not really sure what he was saying. Just repeating the head mistress. My eyes lit up like a screen on standby. Finally getting a signal. I stood up from the chair. Hands at my sides, back straight. Activated, awaiting instructions. Ethan froze. The head mistress spoke up behind him. Mr. Hayes, our academy designed a special system for our students. They need an activation command to wake up. With this command, she'll never go against anything. You want even got it? Then he stepped forward, looked me up and down, eyes lit up with that mischievous testing thing. The same look he had 3 years ago. Every time he pissed me off, and waited for me to cry and crawl back into his arms. But this time he said no. I kneel down and polish my shoes. I didn't pause. I dropped straight to my knees, picked up the cloth and polished his already shiny shoes. One stroke at a time. Clean motions. No expression. Ethan laughed. Real satisfied. Claire actually learned something. Used to be asking her for a glass of water meant a half-day tantrum. Now she'll kneel and shine my shoes. In the car, Ethan tossed out Claire. How were the 3 years at the academy? I didn't answer. He hadn't said answer there. He raised his voice. I finally spoke. Voice flat as a text-to-speech file. Question form is not a valid command. To get an answer, please use the imperative. The air in the car froze. Ethan's voice caught. After a long minute he said answer. Academy life was full and meaningful. I completed 3 core courses. Emotion control, absolute obedience, virtuous wife cultivation. My graduation grade was excellent. The instructor wrote most successful transformation case of the year. I recited it word by word, flat as a product manual. The passenger seat went quiet for a long time. Ethan muttered, why does she sound like Mia? I stared straight ahead, no expression. The city moved past the window. The high rises, the overpasses, the billboards. None of it matched what I remembered at the academy. Time was measured in commands. A day and a month felt the same. The only way I could tell time was by the tally marks. I scratched on the wall of the solitary cell. Toward the end, I couldn't even scratch them anymore. The car pulled into the garage almost at dusk. Mia stood at the entrance to the living room, hands folded in front of her, standard smile on her lips. Not too much, not too little. Exactly 6 teeth showing. Same as 3 years ago. Back then, Ethan had walked her through the door, crouched down to talk to her, voice impossibly soft. Mia, welcome home. I had run over from the couch, wanted to look at this robot eating up all my husband's attention. I tripped and fell flat on my face. Ethan didn't help me up, said I was clumsy, said I just made trouble. After that, he started thinking something was wrong with me. Said I wasn't obedient like Mia, wasn't thoughtful like Mia, didn't get him like Mia did. In the end he sent me away. Miss Wright, welcome home. Mia's voice was still sweet. I didn't answer. She hadn't given me the command. Ethan frowned and shoved my arm. Say hi to Mia. What you mute speak. I gave him the same standard smile back. Hello. Thank you. Ethan nodded, satisfied. We sat down to dinner, Mia on his right, me at the far end. Steam rose off the bowls. The smell hit my nose, but my stomach didn't react. At the academy, eating was filed under energy replenishment. Nothing to do with pleasure. Nothing to do with hunger. Ethan saw I hadn't picked up my fork. He sneered. What do I have to kneel and beg before you'll eat? I read it as a command. Thank you for granting me food. Please permit me to eat. Ethan jolted and told me to get up, eat. I sat back down, picked up my fork and put cilantro in my mouth. Ethan's eyes went wide. Weird. You eat cilantro now. You used to gag at the smell. Wouldn't go near it. I didn't answer. I just speared more cilantro. The instructor said preferences were emotional residue. Signs the transformation hadn't finished. 3rd month in, I refused a salad with cilantro in it. They locked me in the solitary cell for 2 full days. No light, no sound. No nothing, just dark. When I came out, I ate the cilantro. Then celery, onions, bitter melon, everything I used to push away. I ate it all. Ethan nodded satisfied. He liked sensible. He liked not picky. Then I reached for the mango on the plate, put a cube in my mouth, chewed 15 times, followed. His eyes went huge. You ate mango, Claire? Are you crazy? You're severely allergic. One bite as a kid almost killed you. Did you forget? I chewed and didn't answer. At the academy, allergies weren't allowed. The instructor smeared mango pulp on my arm. The redness, the blisters, the open sores, they spread layer by layer. Allergy is bodily weakness. Weakness can be trained into strength. The skin festered, healed. Festered, healed. The reactions kept coming. My whole body started shaking. My throat tightened. My skin started itching. Red welts blooming everywhere. Ethan leaned in, his face going white. Claire, stop eating. You know you're allergic. My fork hung in the air. I looked up at him. No emotion in my eyes. Voice steady as reading from a textbook. Is this a command? Ethan froze. I was already struggling to breathe. Mia's gentle voice came in nearby. Patient is experiencing moderate mango allergic reaction. Breathing difficulty. Level 2 skin redness covering approximately 25%. Immediate anti-allergic treatment recommended. Ethan snapped into motion, tore through the cabinets for allergy meds, and forced one down my throat. After my breathing settled, the dining room was dead quiet. He looked at me, voice full of disbelief and panic. Why are you so wrong? You used to cry, throw fits, lose your temper. Not like this. Not like Mia. I didn't speak. He hadn't said speak. Can't you just be normal? His voice climbed. Stop copying everything Mia does. I wanted an understanding wife, not an emotionless machine. I looked at his face. Anger. Irritation. I said flat. Please define normal. His face went pale. He called the academy. The person on the line said it was a normal reaction to deep behavioral correction and would clear up in a few days. No, Bill Blake 1 is our top student. He understands obedience better than any AI. You can rest easy. Ethan hung up and exhaled. So for the days that followed, I became the most useful tool in the house. He had me clean and the place was spotless. Cleaner than anything Mia did. He had me prep his formal wear for events. And I had it ironed flat ahead of time. Not a wrinkle. He came home drunk at 4 in the morning. And I handed him hangover soup at exactly the right temperature. Ethan told his friends on the phone, laughing. Claire is more useful than an AI wife now. Until the night he forgot to give me the sleep command. Everyone went to bed. I sat on the living room couch from dark until dawn. When Ethan came down in the morning, I was in the same position. Exact same spot. The cup in his hand hit the floor and shattered. A woman in a white coat showed up at the house soon after. She introduced herself as Dr. Smith, a psychologist. Soft voice. Claire, hello. I didn't speak. Ethan rubbed his hands beside me, anxious. You have to give her a command. Otherwise she won't talk. Dr. Smith glanced at him, frowned and switched to imperative. Please tell me your name. No. 001. Her pen stopped on the paper. What's your real name? They're right. But that's a former name. Academy regulations say graduated students use their number as their official designation. Dr. Smith just sat there stunned. Ethan's face went ugly. They went into the study and said words I couldn't follow. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Depersonalization, long-term treatment. After that, the house got strange. Then started walking on eggshells around me. The day came, our wedding anniversary. Same day 3 years ago. He'd shoved me into the car and sent me to that academy. He'd made the hard decision to send Mia away. So this was Mia's last anniversary too. The living room was full of balloons. A 2-tier cake on the table. Mia walked over, still gentle. Still soft. Miss Wright. Happy anniversary. My eyes blinked. Something in my head loosened a little. Today was my anniversary too. Nobody remembered. 3 years ago. I cried and asked Ethan if we could wait until after the anniversary. Before I went, Ethan said, we'll make it up when you come back. Fixed. I came back fixed. The cake never came. Then Mia smiled at me. Miss Wright. The definition of normal is to push people you don't like. Push me like you did 3 years ago. She gave me a definition of normal. I put my hand on her shoulder. I didn't even push, she went down. Her skirt spread on the floor like a wilting flower. The living room door opened. Ethan stood there with 2 glasses of juice screaming at me. Claire, what the hell are you doing? The glasses hit the floor. Juice and shards everywhere. Mia sat on the ground and looked up. Eyes brimming. Miss Wright. Why did you push me? I just wanted to wish you a happy anniversary. I thought you didn't hate me anymore. I didn't say anything. She was faking. I knew she was faking. The tears were simulated by code. The trembling spat out by an algorithm. Ethan rushed over his face, going from shock to rage in 3 seconds. What are you doing? Why did you push Mia? She told me to push her. You're lying. Mia wailed. How could I tell her to push me? I just wanted to get along with Miss Wright. Ethan crouched and helped her up. careful like lifting porcelain that might break. He looked up at me, eyes full of disappointment. You haven't changed at all. 3 years at the academy. You came back pretending to be good. And then you showed your true face the second you got the chance. Knew it. A dog can't stop eating shit. And here I was thinking I should treat you better. I was regretting sending you there. I was figuring out how to make it up to you. He stepped closer, fingers stabbing at my chest. And what happens? You haven't changed at all. You still can't stand Mia. You faked it for 3 years and fooled everyone. I opened my mouth. I wanted to say it wasn't me faking. It was the academy that did this to me. It was you who sent me. But I couldn't get it out. There was no command. Speak, he yelled. I have not received the command to speak. Ethan's face went red. Behind him, Mia leaned against him sobbing. Quiet. Go die. Ethan said it just like that. The living room went still for 1 second. His voice came back loud enough to shake the windows. Aren't you supposed to execute every command? Aren't you so well behaved? Then go die. It'll be quieter when you're dead. A second after he said it, Mia collapsed to the floor. Her body convulsed, eyes rolled back. Foam coming from her mouth. Mia, what's wrong? Ethan's scream came from behind me. He held her head, jamming his thumb into her philtrum, calling for an ambulance. He huddled over her. Didn't look at me. Once command received. Go die. He didn't hear me. He stayed huddled around Mia, face full of panic and heartache. I turned slow and walked toward the balcony. Night air poured in cold. Claire. He finally noticed. The phone slipped out of his hand and smashed on the floor. Claire, what are you doing? Come back. I gave him a faint smile and executed the command. I climbed over the railing without stopping. The wind didn't howl, it whispered. It rushed past my ears like the gentle hum of the solitary cell's ventilation shaft. For 3 years, gravity had been just another variable I wasn't allowed to react to without permission. Now it was pulling me down into the dark. I didn't scream. Screaming was emotional residue. I simply kept my eyes open, watching the lit windows of our penthouse blur into streaks of gold. Then came the impact. I didn't hit the concrete patio. 2 floors down, our neighbor had installed a reinforced glass conservatory awning. I crashed through it. The sound was deafening, a jagged explosive symphony of shattering glass. The thick panes didn't hold my weight, but they broke my momentum, slicing through my white dress and my skin before I tumbled into the dense, manicured hedges bordering their terrace. Pain. It wasn't the dull, algorithmic ache of the Academy's punishment protocols. It was a searing, chaotic, blinding agony. A jagged piece of glass had torn through the back of my neck, right at the base of my skull. Pain is bodily weakness. The instructor's voice echoed in my mind, a scratched record skipping in a silent room. Weakness can be trained into strength. But as the warm blood pooled beneath my head, something shifted. A sharp, mechanical crack sounded inside my neck, entirely separate from the breaking of my bones. A spark of electricity bit into my brainstem, followed by the smell of ozone. And then a floodgate shattered. For the first time in 1,095 days, a thought formed in my mind without a command. Preceding it, I hurt. I am bleeding. I am Claire. The numbness, the heavy, suffocating blanket that the Academy had draped over my consciousness, began to fray. I could feel my fingers twitching. I could feel the cold night air biting at the lacerations on my arms. I could hear the distant, hysterical screaming coming from the balcony above. It was Ethan. Claire. Claire. I closed my eyes. The darkness took me, but for the first time in years it was my own darkness. I woke up to the rhythmic, sterile beeping of a heart monitor. The smell of iodine and bleach filled my lungs. I didn't open my eyes immediately. 3 years of conditioning had taught me patience. 3 years of survival had taught me to assess my environment before reacting. The structural damage to her cervical spine is minimal, miraculously, a female voice said. It was soft, clinical. Dr. Smith. The glass awning saved her life. But Mr. Hayes, we need to discuss what we found during the MRI. She fell. She attempted suicide. Ethan's voice was ragged, pitched high with a frantic, trembling edge. Just patch her up. I need her awake. I need her functioning. Mr. Hayes, please lower your voice, Dr. Smith replied, her tone sharpening into something dangerous. When we imaged your wife's neck to check for spinal cord trauma, we found a foreign object lodged at the C1 vertebra. A synthetic microarray interface. A neural inhibitor. Silence stretched in the hospital room. I kept my breathing perfectly even. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold for 2. Exhale for 4. I don't know what you're talking about, Ethan stammered. Don't lie to me, Dr. Smith hissed. I suspected something was profoundly wrong. When I visited your home, depersonalization and PTSD don't present with synchronized micropupillary delays. She wasn't traumatized into obedience. Ethan. She was chipped. The Perfect Wife Academy didn't just train her, they lobotomized her free will with black market cybernetics. It's legal. Ethan blurted out, defensive, cornered. It's classified under behavioral modification therapy. I signed the consent forms as her medical proxy. She was unhinged, doctor. She was ruining my life, breaking things, crying all the time. I just wanted peace. You wanted a slave, Dr. Smith said with icy disgust. And you nearly killed her. The impact with the glass shattered the inhibitor's casing. The chip is fried. My heart gave a violent, rebellious thump against my ribs. The monitor sped up for a fraction of a second before I forced my breathing to slow down. The chip is fried. The invisible collar around my throat, the mechanism that turned my own nervous system against me whenever I tried to disobey, was broken. Fried. Ethan sounded horrified. You mean she's going to go back to how she was? No. No, you have to fix it. Call the academy. Tell them subject 001 is damaged. They have a warranty. I am not calling your butchers, Dr. Smith said. I am calling the authorities. If you do that, Ethan snarled, his voice dropping to a vicious whisper, I'll bury you in litigation. Your clinic is funded by my firm's investments. You blow the whistle on the academy, you blow the whistle on half the billionaires in this city who have sent their wives there. You'll be dead or ruined before the week is out. A tense, heavy silence followed. I felt a gentle hand brush a stray lock of hair away from my forehead. Dr. Smith's fingers were trembling slightly. Fine, Dr. Smith whispered, a tactical retreat. But she needs rest. Wake her up, Ethan commanded. She needs. I said wake her up. I didn't wait for the doctor. I slowly opened my eyes. The harsh fluorescent lights burned, but I kept my pupils fixed, my expression utterly void. I stared straight at the ceiling, waiting. Ethan rushed to the side of the bed. He looked terrible. His hair was disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, his designer shirt stained with something dark. Wait, it wasn't my blood. It smelled sweet. It smelled like synthetic coolant. Mia's fluids. Claire, Ethan gasped, leaning over me. I looked at him. The urge to scream, to spit in his face, to wrap my hands around his throat and squeeze until his eyes popped, rose up in me like a tidal wave of battery acid. The emotion was so intense it physically hurt my chest. But the discipline of the academy, the absolute, terrifying control I had been beaten into learning, held the wave back. I blinked once. Symmetrical. Methodical. I didn't speak. He hadn't given the command. Speak, he whispered, his voice shaking. I let my voice flatten out, stripping every ounce of humanity from it, mimicking the text-to-speech cadence perfectly. Command received. System rebooting. Subject number 001 awaiting instructions. Ethan let out a massive, shuddering breath, sagging against the bedrail. Relief washed over his pathetic face. He looked back at Dr. Smith with a triumphant sneer. You see? You were wrong, doctor. The chip might be broken, but the training holds. She's still mine. Dr. Smith looked at me, her eyes filled with profound sorrow. But as Ethan turned away to check his phone, I briefly, deliberately, shifted my gaze to the doctor. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. But I blinked twice. Help me. Dr. Smith's breath hitched. She saw it. The intelligence behind the glass eyes. She gave a microscopic nod. Get her discharge papers ready, Ethan snapped. I'm taking her home as soon as she can walk. This place smells like death. The return to the house was a masterclass in psychological torture. For Ethan, at least. When we walked through the front door, the silence of the massive penthouse was deafening. There was no gentle, synthetic voice greeting us. There was no Mia. I stood by the door, perfectly still, hands folded in front of me, waiting for a command. Ethan stared at the spot on the rug where Mia had collapsed. A dark, oily stain remained soaked into the expensive fibers. Go to the kitchen, he muttered, rubbing his temples. Make me a drink. Bourbon. Neat. Command acknowledged. I said evenly. As I walked to the kitchen, I surveyed the damage. The house was a mess. In the 2 days I had been in the hospital, Ethan had clearly spiraled. Broken glass from the anniversary juice cups was still swept into a sloppy pile in the corner. Empty bottles littered the counters. I poured the bourbon. My hands didn't shake. I felt a cold, crystalline clarity settling over my mind. The old Claire would have cried seeing the state of her home. The old Claire would have asked Ethan what was wrong, begging for his affection. The new Claire was a predator wearing a sheepskin. I brought him the glass. He snatched it from my hand and downed it in one gulp. Do you know what you did? He slurred, staring at me with venomous eyes. Do you know what happened after you jumped? I remained silent. Answer me, he roared. I executed the command to go die. I replied, my tone pleasant and entirely devoid of inflection. I lack data on subsequent events. Mia is gone. Ethan's voice broke. A tear actually rolled down his cheek. When I yelled go die, I didn't say your name. It was an open vocal command. Mia's core directive was absolute obedience to me. The command created a fatal paradox. In her neural network, she couldn't kill herself because her secondary directive was to protect my property, herself. Her logic core overheated. She melted from the inside out. I stared at him. Inside, a hysterical, dark laughter bubbled up, threatening to tear my chest apart. He killed his own perfect toy. His own cruelty had triggered her self-destruct. The company won't replace her, Ethan sobbed, burying his face in his hands. They said it was user error. A multi-million-dollar unit, voided because of you. Because you had to push her and ruin the anniversary. He looked up at me, his face twisted with hatred. Kneel. I dropped to my knees on the hardwood floor. The bruised ribs from my fall screamed in protest, but my face remained a perfect, placid mask. Apologize to Mia, he spat, pointing at the oily stain on the rug. I turned my head toward the stain. I apologize, Mia. My actions caused systemic failure. Ethan watched me, breathing heavily. He was waiting for a crack. He was waiting for the old Claire to burst through, to cry at the humiliation, to fight back so he could justify hitting me. But I gave him nothing. I gave him the absolute, terrifying void of an object. And slowly, I saw the horror dawn in his eyes. An object cannot love you. An object cannot comfort you. Ethan realized in that quiet, echoing penthouse that he was utterly, completely alone. Go to your corner, he whispered, turning his back on me. Stand there until I tell you to move. Command acknowledged. I walked to the corner of the living room and stood. I stood there as the sun went down. I stood there as Ethan drank himself into a stupor on the couch. I stood there as the moon cast long, skeletal shadows across the floor. While my body was motionless, my mind was racing. Dr. Smith had slipped a tiny burner smartwatch into the pocket of my hospital clothes before I left. It was currently taped to the inside of my thigh. I needed to act, but I needed to be flawless. At 3 a.m., Ethan began to snore heavily. I didn't step out of the corner. I hadn't been given the command to move. But the academy had trained me to interpret commands strictly and literally. Stand there until I tell you to move. He hadn't told me I couldn't use my voice. Very quietly, mimicking the exact frequency and pitch of Mia's synthetic voice. A skill I had perfected in the darkness of the solitary cell when I was losing my mind. I spoke to the penthouse's smart home hub. System override. Voice ID Mia. Authorization code, Alpha 77 Delta. The little light on the wall panel blinked from red to green. Mia was dead, but her access codes were still deeply embedded in the house's local network. Ethan had been too drunk and lazy to wipe her from the registry. Access granted. The house AI chimed softly. Disable exterior locks. Disable security cameras. Grant remote network access to external IP. I whispered the IP address Dr. Smith had covertly given me. Confirmed. The system whispered back. I had given Dr. Smith the keys to Ethan's castle. She could now download the internal surveillance footage of the last 3 years, footage of Ethan abusing me, footage of him giving the fatal command to Mia, footage of him admitting to the illegal neural chipping. But that wasn't enough. I didn't just want Ethan to go to jail. I wanted to tear down the entire Perfect Wife Academy. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. Ethan, looking pale and jittery from withdrawals, opened it. Standing there in a pristine, tailored gray suit was the headmistress. Behind her stood 2 large men in dark clothes. Retrieval specialists, the academy called them. Mr. Hayes, the headmistress said, her voice smooth and chillingly polite. We received your message regarding subject 001. You mentioned a hardware malfunction. She's defective, Ethan said, stepping back to let them in. He pointed a shaking finger at me. I was standing by the dining table, dusting the same spot of wood for the last 40 minutes, because his command had been dust the table, and he hadn't told me to stop. Defective. The headmistress walked toward me, her heels clicking sharply against the floor. She circled me, her sharp eyes scanning the surgical dressing on the back of my neck. Her form is perfect. Her obedience appears absolute. What is the issue? She's too quiet. Ethan snapped, his paranoia finally boiling over. She's not like Mia. Mia had a simulated personality. Claire just stares at me. It's like living with a corpse. And the hospital doctor said the chip was broken in the fall. I want her recalibrated. I want the personality module you promised me. The headmistress sighed, adjusting her glasses. Mr. Hayes, human subjects are biological. They are messy. We burn away the resistance, but sometimes the underlying trauma creates a feedback loop. If the neural inhibitor is damaged, the subject might revert to a catatonic state to protect her psyche. I don't care about her psyche, Ethan yelled. I paid you $5 million. Fix her. Very well, the headmistress said coldly. She turned to her men. Restrain. Subject 001. We will take her back to the facility. A full lobotomy of the frontal lobe will be required this time, followed by the installation of a mark for chip. The two men stepped forward, pulling out heavy zip ties. My heart beat a steady, slow rhythm. Wait, I said. The word hung in the air, heavy and sharp. The two men stopped. The headmistress froze. Ethan's jaw dropped. Neither of them had given me a command to speak. I slowly stood up straight, dropping the dusting cloth onto the table. I rolled my shoulders, feeling the satisfying pop of my joints, ignoring the sharp twinge of pain in my neck. I looked directly at the headmistress, and for the first time in 3 years, I allowed a genuine, razor-sharp smile to curve my lips. The definition of normal, I said, my voice rich, human, and dripping with venom, is to push people you don't like. Ethan stumbled backward, knocking a chair over. Claire? How you? Subject 001, return to standby mode. The headmistress barked, pulling a small remote from her pocket and pressing a button. Nothing happened. I'm afraid your Bluetooth collar is disconnected, headmistress, I said, taking a step toward her. Gravity was quite effective at voiding the warranty. Grab her. The headmistress shrieked to the guards. System, I said, my voice echoing loudly in the penthouse. Initiate protocol. Solitary confinement. Heavy steel storm shutters slammed down over the floor-to-ceiling windows, plunging the room into twilight. The electronic deadbolts on the front door clacked shut with finality. The smart lights flickered off, leaving only the dim red glow of emergency lighting. The two guards rushed me. 3 years of physical torment, of carrying heavy loads, of scrubbing floors, until my hands bled, of surviving the solitary cell, had stripped away the soft, clumsy Claire. I stepped smoothly to the side, grabbed the heavy crystal bourbon decanter from the table, and smashed it directly into the first guard's face. He went down screaming, clutching his shattered nose. The second guard lunged. I didn't fight him. I just sidestepped again, letting his momentum carry him forward, and shoved him hard toward the stairs leading to the sunken living room. He lost his footing and tumbled down, hitting his head hard against the marble step. He didn't get up. Silence descended on the room, save for the groans of the first guard on the floor. I wiped a drop of spilled bourbon from my hand and turned to Ethan and the headmistress. They were backed against the locked front door, their faces pale with terror. You see, Ethan, I said, my voice soft now, almost conversational. You sent me to a place that systematically destroyed everything human about me. They taught me that pain is an illusion. They taught me absolute emotional control. They taught me how to be a machine. I took a step closer. The headmistress fumbled with her phone. No signal, I informed her pleasantly. The house is running a local jammer. Mia was a very expensive model, Ethan. She came with top-tier security protocols. It's a shame you didn't read the manual. Claire, please, Ethan begged, raising his hands, tears streaming down his face. Claire, it was a mistake. I was stressed. The company was failing. I needed you to be supportive. Please, I'm your husband. Question form is not a valid command, I mocked, tilting my head, staring at him with the dead, shark-like eyes of subject 001. To get an answer, please use the imperative. Ethan sobbed, sliding down the door until he was sitting on the floor. Don't hurt me. Please don't hurt me. I am perfectly obedient, I whispered, kneeling down in front of him just like I had done when I polished his shoes. You told me to go die. And the old Claire did. She died on that balcony, Ethan. The woman looking at you right now is exactly what you paid for. I am the perfect wife. I stood up and looked at the headmistress. She was trembling, trying to maintain her composure. You can't get away with this. You're just a broken toy. Dr. Smith is an excellent psychologist, I said, ignoring her insult. She's also very good with federal agents. For the last 48 hours, she has been streaming the decrypted internal data from this house's servers directly to the FBI. Everything. The illegal modification contracts Ethan signed. The video of you admitting to human experimentation just 10 minutes ago. The coordinates to your academy. The blood drained entirely from the headmistress's face. Sirens began to wail in the distance, a faint, rising howl cutting through the city night, growing rapidly louder. Red and blue lights began to strobe weakly through the cracks in the steel shutters. System, I commanded. Unlock front door. The heavy deadbolt snapped open. I stepped back, smoothing down the front of my white dress. I looked at the two of them, the architect of my nightmare, and the man who sold me to her. They looked like terrified animals trapped in a cage of their own making. Are you going to kill us? Ethan whispered, his voice broken, pathetic. I looked at him, feeling absolutely nothing. No hate, no love, no anger. Just a profound, liberating emptiness that was slowly filling with the warm light of my own reclaimed humanity. No, Ethan, I said, as the heavy thud of police boots echoed in the hallway. Outside. Killing you would be emotional residue. And my graduation grade was excellent. The doors burst open. SWAT team members flooded the room, their flashlights cutting through the red emergency lights, targeting Ethan and the headmistress. Hands in the air. Get on the ground. They swarmed the two of them, pushing Ethan face first into the hardwood floor, right over the dark stain where his beloved AI had met her end. The headmistress was handcuffed, her pristine suit ruined as she was dragged out, screaming about her lawyers. A female officer approached me slowly, her weapon lowered. Ma'am, are you Claire Hayes? I looked at the officer. I thought about the tally marks scratched on the wall of the solitary cell. I thought about the taste of cilantro, and the burning rash of mango, and the 3 years of silence. I reached up and touched the back of my neck, feeling the jagged edge of the broken chip beneath the bandage. My name is Claire, I said. My voice wavered slightly, the first true, uncalculated human emotion slipping out in years. I smiled, and this time it reached my eyes. Just Claire. And I would like to go home.